We can start. Go ahead and start.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone, to our April meeting. First, do we have any public comments? Do you have any public
Oh, I'm
comments?
sorry, just a moment, we do not.
Well, you're right. I didn't even know where we're going yet.
Yes,
So
we are,
Okay,
we are live.
prior to everyone take a moment and kind of review the agenda. But what I need to do is I need to make a motion to change the agenda to add space for Commissioner Hawkins to give us an update on officer mental health and wellness subcommittee report, and also have Commissioner Hawkins review a letter that she composed dealing with the cops grant support letter. So
And the selection subcommittee update.
and the selection subcommittee update, we have a small update on that. So can I get a second?
I'll second that.
second,
Thank you very much. All those in favor for us changing the agenda, raise your hand.
Aye.
Those opposed? So that's the change has been made. Okay, on the last meeting, as far as reviewing, we had a Chief Skinner spoke. We talked about release of booking photos by law enforcement agencies, mugshots. We also we had a portion where we were talking about officer wellness mental health subcommittee, but basically there was no report, which we're going to have it today, because we also made a change where the vice chair has stepped down from that, and we appointed Commissioner Hawkins to run that. And then we also had our final review of policy 807 impact weapons, and we'll be going over that again tonight, and hopefully we get some conclusion to that as well. So let's move on to our liaison reports, and I will start off with Alan Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. The CRB did meet this past week, and it was a meaningful case. It involved the mental well-being of a number of Eugene police officers who now are probably in a better place than they were. It was a supervision case, a supervisor that was violating a lot of policies. And it was useful to see, and very encouraging in terms of that behavior was routed out. And so that's the liaison report from CRB. Thank you.
Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. So the Human Rights Commission met last month as usual, and two new bias crimes were reported. First one was a driver, a garbage collector in East Eugene. He's a Black individual, and he was not paying attention too much to his truck because he was doing his job. And when he got back to his truck, he did realize there was a small crowd out there. And then when he got back, he found a noose in the back of his truck. The video has been reviewed. Employers and employees have been reviewed, but nobody's been able to figure it out. So that one has been suspended for now. And then the second one is related to the last month's report that I gave you about a trans individual in an apartment experiencing threatening noises and other things along those lines. But they were not able to figure out who was doing it. But the new crime is someone removed the bumper of her car. So the police have lost contact with the victim, and it is still open at this point. So that brings our total number of bias crimes up to 8, which is less than 2021, but more than last year. So we are keeping a close eye on that. Secondly, I wanted to bring up to the Police Commission that the Human Rights Commission has finally identified a couple barriers and gaps in being able to report. So I expect to be coming to the police commission with a lot more reports here pretty soon. And so just expect kind of a backlog of numbers. And then Eugene Police is aware of the anti-Semitic flyers that have been continued to be handing around South Eugene and River Road. They are in contact with the Jewish community and have been offering security and other ways that I don't really want to disclose on a public meeting, but they are being supported in the best way possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Councilor Ye?
Thanks. I can't think of anything relevant to report that's been going on in council. But if, I don't know if Alan is there and he knows of anything.
He's going to be excused from tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't think of anything that directly relates to police commission that I need to bring today.
Thank you. Commissioner Winbrock.
Evening, everyone. I do not have anything to report. Unfortunately, I will have to leave the commission meeting a little bit early tonight to prep for a seminar that I have tomorrow for school. My apologies, but I'm looking forward to staying engaged the entire time that I'm able to be so tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Mogart. Silverio? We not get him on.
They might have some difficulty unmuting themselves on the telephone. I'm unsure if, oh, there you go.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Mogart?
I've been muted. I don't know if you can hear me. I've been muted.
We can hear you.
You hear me? Oh, yeah, nothing to report.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you, Chair. I did actually 2 more ride-alongs accidentally this week. We ended up with one officer having to spend some time accompanying a subject to the hospital. So they transferred me to another officer for another ride-along. So now I have a total of, I think, 6 ride-alongs that I've done between Eugene Police and Portland Police Bureau. I highly recommend it for commissioners, civilian review board, anybody who's interested in the processes.
Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking forward to Commissioner Hawkins' report on officer wellness findings. That I know that she has dedicated a lot of her time into her research, so this should be very educational to hear. Thank you.
Commissioner Shivers?
I'm excited for the upcoming work retreat as well, and excited to be here tonight. Thanks.
And my update is we have the Sponsors Inc. It should have been emailed invitation to everyone on the police commission. I'm on the board with Sponsors Inc. and this is our major fundraiser, major event celebrating 50 years of existence. And I do know that Commissioner Hawkins and her husband will be in attendance, but I just want to make sure that they officially, and they spoke here at our commission as well. Next, we have the chief's report, and we have today Deputy Chief Adams.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, apologies. Chief Skinner could not be here tonight. He had a pre-existing commitment. So what's really cool is I get to spend time with you guys, which is time that I always enjoy. So first and foremost, I'd like to highlight a couple of things that are happening within the agency. And I'll start with our recruiting and hiring efforts. As of the 24th of this month, we'll be down 19 officers. Now that still sounds like a daunting number, but if you think back to the last few months, we've been down as many as 28. So we're making some progress on that. We have a model recruiting outreach program, and that pairs our recruiters with individuals, and we keep them engaged in the process throughout the entire recruiting effort. And that shows value in our candidates, and we're having success where other agencies that are offering larger signing bonuses and otherwise we're having more success. So that's really pretty cool. We are in the process of backgrounding 3 additional officers right now and 1 lateral police officer. So we could have as many as 4 more here in the hopper pretty quick. And we just ran a hiring blitz and we have 12 police officer candidates heading to background. So that's a pretty good effort right now. And what's really even on top of that is we have 4 officers graduating from the police academy tomorrow. So they'll be back into field training and we're going to make advances in our staffing. Some of the other things we'd like to highlight around the agency right now, which does dovetail into our hiring efforts, is we have a lot of promotional processes going on right now. And we had 18 applicants for sergeant. And we've ended up promoting 6 thus far, and we'll have additional promotees from the sergeant level. We interviewed for lieutenant today. 7 lieutenants candidates are moving forward. So within the next couple of months, we'll have our command structure, supervisory structure for this agency set for the upcoming future. So really cool things happening with the agency right now. A lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and a lot of good things happening. So transitioning to what we're doing, there's a lot of effort right now committed into our downtown core. There's anxiety within the downtown businesses and others in the downtown area regarding the city hall being moved from downtown into the E-Web building. We recognize that. We recognize some of the challenges in the downtown. So we have some increased efforts into the downtown area right now, and Chief Skinner's working on building a new model program down there, which will bring in more than likely a civilian manager, and will bring all kinds of entities together, not just police, but homeless outreach, some sanitation pieces, really just a holistic effort to address some of the issues we see in the downtown core. What's really cool about what's happening now in the downtown is we're working towards a co-responder model, which would pair some type of a qualified mental health professional or QMHP with a police officer to address or respond to those calls that deal with somebody that's having, some emotional disturbance, some mental health issues or otherwise. So that's a really nice piece for us to be able to put into place in our downtown core to supplement our ongoing efforts. So that's really exciting. And really, that's a lot of what's happening within the agency right now. I think that's pretty much it. Chair Boggs, that will do. Yeah.
You have a question here?
What's the anticipated timeframe for the rollout of that co-responder model downtown?
I cannot speak to that at this point. Chief Skinner is working through that. We're attempting to do this through grant funding. And there's also some overlap here with Lane County Mental Health and otherwise. So working on it. We want to get there. And really, as an agency, it would be really nice if we could supplement our CAHOOTS response with some sort of a behavior co-responder model, like is very popular in other police agencies. But that's going to take a little bit of time and effort, because the first thing that's priority for this police agency is getting our staff or our ranks built up to where we need to be. So, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the update. Next, we have Pepperball and Extended Range Impact Weapon Presentation. We have Sergeant Ware and Lieutenant Salisbury.
Salisbury, yes.
Salisbury.
You bite?
All right, well, thank you guys. Holly's gonna help me out and run the computer so you guys can all see the presentation.
I'll try to.
You can do it, Holly. I got faith in you for sure.
There, I need to put that.
Did everybody see?
F5.
Sorry, it's not letting me do the view slideshow because this is in my way. There we go. There we go. Give me a minute here.
I think we should have that for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, good. And
Yeah.
if we can wait to ask questions till after the presentation, that would be great.
So as you mentioned, this is just kind of an overview of our pepper ball extended range impact systems, the 40 millimeter and our batons. Pepper ball, it's important that people know it's a non-lethal chemical agent delivery system. It's using air to deliver the projectiles. And what it does is it provides distance between the officers and anybody that the suspects. And that enhances safety for all involved. These launchers, they're not firearms. They are less lethal and non-lethal deployment systems. The neat thing with the pepper ball system is it gives us the ability to either deliver just a chemical agent, or it gives us the potential to do a delivery of a chemical agent, which we'll talk about later, and have some kinetic impact, so we can do direct deployments onto a person's body if we need to. This next slide, this just shows the different pepper ball launchers that are out there. Currently, our department utilizes the TAC SA, which is a semi-automatic on the left side of your screen there. And that's
I apologize to interrupt, but I don't think at least on our end, for those of us who are streaming in via Zoom, are able to see the presentation as you're presenting it. Again, I apologize for interrupting your flow.
That's okay. Can you see anything?
We can see the first slide. And I think that if you press, there's a button on the bottom part of the screen. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Can you see it now?
We can indeed. I can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And can we go back to slide 2, please?
Go back to slide 2. Sorry about that.
So again, this slide just talks about how the launchers are not firearms. They deliver the projectiles using an high pressure air delivery system. And they can either be done with kinetic energy, meaning a direct impact on a person, or just exposure to the chemical agent, which we'll talk about. Again, the bottom left, the TAC SA, that's the launcher that we use on our mobile response team. Part of the reason we have that one is it gives us the ability to have the shoulder fire, which is able to better be aimed if we need to. So that's that. It's a hopper fed delivery system. So the pepper balls will sit in the hopper and then be launched through the barrel.
Can you guys see this still? Everyone that's watching on Zoom.
Yes, I can see it, Holly.
Okay, thank you. If you can't, please speak up.
This launcher here is called the VKS. And this launcher, the nice thing with it is it will utilize the round projectile pepper balls, or it's got a spin stabilized projectile that we could deploy from it. And it gives us the ability to deploy from a greater distance, which will even increase that safety. So our projectiles that we use are a plastic frangible sphere. They're 0.68 caliber. They weigh 6 grams. And the kinetic impact on these, if we do a direct deployment on a person, is 10 to 12 pounds of energy. And for those that don't understand, kinetic energy is basically the transfer of that force. So when the projectile's going through the air and then hits the target, that's how you measure the energy. They shoot or deploy it between 3 and 350 feet per second, which is right up there. It's the equivalent of a paintball gun. So all those that have been out and done paintball before, it's very similar to that. We use 3 different projectiles. The one on the far left is an inert, and it has just a powder in it that smells a lot like baby powder. It has no chemical issues or anything like that. We have a projectile that's called Live, which contains a PAVA. And PAVA, for those that don't know, it's an organic material that's found in Tabasco sauce, and a lot of cooking spices, things like that. And what we use these projectiles for is we have a suspect hiding, concealing themselves, and we can't get to them. We can deploy these rounds in such a manner that they'll break above or behind the suspect, release the PAVA, and create a situation where they'll want to leave that area and come out where we can safely contact the person. Or we can do direct impact, like I said. The round on the far right, it's the VXR Live X round. Again, it contains PAVA like the live round. But you'll notice it's got a plastic cone or sphere on the bottom that's got little spines to it. Or I don't know if spines is the right word, but it's spin stabilized. So that's what allows the projectile to deploy at a longer distance, maintain its accuracy. So like the round projectiles are only accurate to about 60 feet, whereas the spin stabilized can go up to 150. We primarily use these as an indirect or area denying tool. But we can, like I said, deploy them directly at a threat if needed. The chemical agent is used when suspects are not in view or hidden. We can maintain our distance. And one of the other things with the maintaining the distance is when we deploy these rounds at a suspect, we can gauge how they're going to comply with us. So they either get a direct impact or some just exposure to the chemical agent, and we can start giving them commands, and it's going to give us the ability to see how they're going to follow instructions, which is again another way to increase safety for the suspect and the officers. And it can be used, like I said, to keep people out of certain areas. And the officers have the ability to escalate or de-escalate by either doing the area saturation or denying deployment, or a direct impact with the kinetic energy. This slide just covers the policy specific to the pepper ball projectiles. We have a specific policy 804 for the pepper ball, and then any use of force falls under our 800 policy. Then our policy 801 talks about the reporting for use of force. And then the 803 and 805 are dealing with primarily the aftercare of dealing with somebody after they've been exposed to the chemical or the PAVA. To carry or deploy a pepper ball, the officers need to attend a full day of training. They have to participate in the class. They take a written test, have to pass that with a 90%. They go through a deployment qualification course, which is deploying the pepper ball from various distances and being accurate at those distances. They complete in some practical exercises, some scenario type training, and then they get recertified biannually. And we also review any updated to case law during these recertifications. Our extended range impact system, otherwise known as a 40 millimeter. This is a less than lethal launcher. It's designed to deliver a spin stabilized foam rubber projectile. It's deployed from a launcher that has a rifled barrel, and it's designed for direct impact on a single suspect. EPD, we utilize the pin arms single launcher. It's got a double action trigger, 40 millimeters of caliber, again, one shot capacity, and it's a brake frame. So to load it and unload it, you have to there's a release valve button, you open it to put your projectiles in. So this is a picture of our projectile right here. It's a 40 millimeter. Some people call it a sponge round. It's got a primer, and so when it's deployed, the the launcher actually has a little hammer, hits the primer, and that's what releases the projectile. So what happens when these rounds impact a person is they deformed and they absorb some of that. And then spread it over a wider area on the person that it comes in contact with. We deploy these between 5 and 90 feet. And the velocity is between 240 and 260 feet per second. So it's actually less than that of the pepper ball. This tool's primarily used it's used for single subjects. We use it to arrest violent armed individuals. There was a news story just the other day on KZI about a male that officers arrested that was engaged in an assault, running down the road, had a knife on him. Officers were able to use this tool to safely and effectively get the knife out of his hands and get him under arrest. So high threat level, we use it in defense of ourselves or others. And, we have to have a probable cause for a crime that's commensurate with the level of force. Meaning that someone goes and steals a stick of gum, we're not gonna deploy a 40 millimeter on them. It's gotta be a good crime to do so. And we have to intend on making an arrest when we deploy this in someone. We're not gonna just deploy it and walk away. We're gonna do everything we can to get the person into custody. Regardless if we're deploying the pepper ball or the 40 millimeter, we have these primary target zones, which are identified in green. Secondary are yellow, and red are last resort or lethal. So most of our deployments are for the fatty tissue areas, muscle areas, and that's going to give us our primary desired effect of the blunt impact. And if we need to, then we'll go to a secondary target zone, but the stuff in red, that's got to be lethal force. We won't deploy in those areas unless we have lethal force. The policy that we're talking about tonight, you guys are going to review is 807, and that's the policy that will cover all this stuff. Again, with all of our force policies or use of force, we have to follow policy 800, which is the overview of use of force. 801 is our reporting systems. And then we have a command directive back from 2021 where we don't use this in crowd control other than life protection. Again, the officers that are able to carry and deploy these have to attend a full day of education, participate in the classroom discussions, pass another written test, go through a qualification course, participate in scenario training, and get recertified and updated on case law during the recertification processes. Our batons that we utilize both on patrol and primarily during field force. We have 2 of them. The patrol officers are issued the PR-24s, which is the one on the upper right. And the long batons on the lower right are what we issue to our mobile response team officers. And that's a 36-inch long baton. We use batons made out of a polycarbonate, so it's kind of like a resin plastic material. And their primary use for us is as a defensive tool. And then secondarily, we use it to overcome resistance or attack. But our primary reason for having them is to keep the officers safe. We use these things, our batons, to help if we have to move people. We have different ways of doing it. We have the guide, push, shove, and drive. And basically it's kind of escalation in amount of resistance that we're gonna use to push a person from the desired place or to keep the officers safe and create the space we need. So a guide is really soft and just like, hey, could you move over there? Whereas a push, it's like, hey, I asked you to move over there, just kind of get back. And it's literally just like that. It's just, pushing them back a little bit, say, I asked you to stay away. Shove is gonna be a little more like, I've asked you multiple times, you keep coming back and you're gonna maybe cause them to step back a couple steps. And then a drive, that's if they're gonna keep coming in and trying to break through the line or area that we're trying to protect. And that's gonna be a little harder and we're gonna drive it and that could cause them to potentially fall backwards. Batons, they need to be reasonable, the force used. So the variance between guide, push, shove and drive, it's gotta be reasonable and necessary to protect yourself, others, and preserve public order. Our baton policy is 807, which is this one we're doing tonight. And again, they have to take into account policy 800 and then 801 for use of force reporting. So for carrying a baton, each of the officers, generally when they're recruits, and then again, if they join our mobile response team, we do annual training for them. They got to attend a full day class, participate in discussions, go through practical application exercises, and then they get annual refresher trainings where we discuss updates and case law and things like that. All of our incidents of force, show of force or use of force with the pepper ball or the extended range 40mm get entered into blue team. And those incidents are reviewed by the chain of command and training. And so if an officer's on a scene and they bring out a 40mm or a pepper ball and it's displayed, even if they don't use it, we document it and that incident's reviewed all the way up the chain to the training department. If force is actually used, supervisors will respond, make sure all the appropriate steps have been taken, photographs are done, aftercare has been provided, any witnesses are interviewed or identified, and any applicable evidence is collected. And that's what I have for you folks. Thank you.
Great, so there's probably some questions. We need to get that off.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lemon.
Thank you, Chair. And this is just a really quick, question for clarification. So on the let's say just pepper ball rounds, I'm asking specifically between the difference between the VXR versus that middle category, and wondering if the VXR gives more force and more kinetic energy to the body because it has a longer range. So if it was shot at a closer range, or is the kinetic energy about equivalent? Thank you.
I believe the kinetic energy is very similar. The difference is that spin stabilizer on the VXR round allows it to fly through the air for a longer distance and maintain its accuracy. But the air pressure that's deploying it is going to be same as it would be for the round projectile.
And the more distance
Lower,
it gets out there, the less kinetic energy it's gonna have.
Okay, so thank you both. I appreciate that. So do you all pull out the middle round, and I forget what that was called, I'm sorry, for like closer situations, and then the VXR is pulled out for longer range situations? How does that work?
So when you say middle round, are you referring to the live? Okay. Oh yeah, that's primarily used on patrol right now for using the live PAVA is used like if we have somebody hiding from us on patrol, or if we need to create some distance because we have a violent person that we're trying to effect an arrest on. we can use the round and get that little bit of kinetic impact and the exposure to the PAVA and measure their compliance if they're gonna follow, follow commands at that point. The VX, the spin stabilized one, that's gonna, most patrol officers don't have that ability to deploy that because the ones we currently have are used by our SWAT team. And so the SWAT personnel are the ones that deploy that round. And those are different scenarios.
And typically the VXR rounds are deployed in a SWAT environment on a non-compliant suspect, either during a search warrant, barricade subject, resistant arrest or something like that, and usually deployed at a distance from behind cover or in effecting an arrest on subjects.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of your answers, and I think I'm certainly satisfied, and I think most of the citizens would be with that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions? Commissioner?
Regarding the pepper ball projectiles with that landed with 10 to 12 pounds of energy, for those of us who did not pass physics at college, what sort of comparable force can you explain? Like, is it comparable to chucking a 10-pound bag of flour at somebody? I'm curious about the actual realistic impact.
Easiest way, have you ever been pepperball or paintballing?
I
Been
haven't.
out and done paintball?
It's
Stings a little
it
bit?
stings.
It's like a
Yeah,
sting.
that's the best way. That's the best way that I would describe it. Is similar to a pepper or not a pepper ball, similar to saying the same thing because that's what we're talking about. Similar to a paintball. And so it can potentially leave a bruise, or paintballs leave a bruise. If you've ever been paintballing before, those that are familiar with
I've
that.
seen the bruises.
Yes. And so it's a pain compliance in addition to, if it's deployed with the PAVA, then it's the chemical irritant that the combination of the two that helps us affect that arrest. And so there is the effect of it's not painful. I would describe it more of a kind of like a sting, like a bee sting or something to that
If I were to
effect.
flick him like this right here, right now.
Yeah, that's what it would feel like.
That's kind of, a little bit more, but kind of what it would feel like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner V?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for this really comprehensive presentation. The illustrations really help a lot. For those unfamiliar with, what these different items look like. I'm just wondering, and this might sound silly, but if a projectile round, once deployed, and ever like miss the target, do they not sometimes get dispersed? If so, what would be the steps taken to prevent, say a kid or a dog or somebody, or some wild animals ingesting it? Has that ever happened, for one of the rounds to not get dispersed?
I'm sure it probably has. I know part of what we do when we deploy these is we go through the area and we gather up the debris. And so in most cases, if we'll find it that it hasn't deployed, and then we'll dispose of it properly afterwards. I haven't heard of anybody ingesting them. Again, it's not a chemical, it's a natural compound, so I don't believe there would be any ill effects if someone decided to swallow one. But yeah, we generally, as part of our practice, is when we deploy any of these munitions, we look for the remnants and we pick them up.
Okay, I thank you. And I think, just for me, if I were to, make a single wish to see in this presentation, is to maybe, along with the undispersed capsules, if you have one that is already dispersed, it would be really great to see a photo of that as well.
Okay, yeah, unfortunately don't have any photos with me. And they break apart, and so what you're gonna do if we had a photo, you're gonna see where the projectile impacted whatever, and you're gonna see like a little round mark with the pava or the inert powder, and then it's gonna kind of poof up almost like talcum powder. Yeah, it's gonna just kind of, if you threw something against the wall, you know, some powder against the wall, it's gonna kind of flare up. That's all you'll see.
So does the capsule then looks kind of like a membrane, or is it like a balloon, or is it hard?
It's a clear plastic capsule. And
Okay,
it is a hard capsule, you know, and it's designed that so it doesn't break inside the launcher when it's deployed.
Designed to break on impact.
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you so much.
I saw a hand, Commissioner Winbrock.
Hey, really appreciate the presentation, and even though I've taken physics classes, I still struggle too to find the parallel. So you're not alone. Thanks for asking that question. My question is not designed to be cheeky, but I just wanted to preface it by saying that some folks that I know who do work to advocate for folks who use SNAP nutritional benefits often go through the SNAP program themselves, sign up for it. I was wondering, as part of your training, do our officers rather, ever use this ordinance on themselves, similar to tasing yourself and seeing what the impact of a taser is as part of the training? Do y'all ever use these less than lethal technologies on your own officers to have a better understanding of what the physiological and psychological responses are?
Not generally. We've had officers will deploy the pava rounds from the pepper ball, and officers will walk through it and get the pava exposure so they know what that's like, but we're not deploying and directly impacting them. No.
Thanks so much.
Commissioner Z, is your hand still up?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I forgot to lower it.
Only because I can't see you. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Mogart?
I don't.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Good job. Next. Yes.
Will we receive copies of the slides?
Yes, is that okay to share with them?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have our final review of policy 807 impact weapons. And we have Sergeant Smith.
Good evening, everyone. So, bringing it back to the table, and I'm going to think positive tonight, that the changes that were made were very slight from our last discussion, but I did hear the concern. We did make a slight change to the title just to cover that it was more than just impact weapons, that it is going to cover the kinetic impact systems. And then we were, the other changes that we made were consistency on the verbiage that we use throughout the document. An emphasis Sergeant Ware brought to my attention is that because the impact systems are not an actual firearm or weapon, we should not refer to the projectiles as ammunition or munitions. And so that was changed throughout the system to reflect projectiles and impact systems. And then for the bullet that we had a lengthy discussion about at our last meeting, we landed on in crowd management as a reasonable use of force in accordance with policy 800, and that was going to be on page 5. It's bullet 3 of 807.5, and I have Lieutenant Salisbury and Sergeant Ware here tonight to help me for any clarifying questions in regards to concerns that we have tonight.
Do you have any questions? Commissioner Lehman?
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank you, Julie, and thank everyone who worked on this for the last 3 months. Between the last meeting and this meeting, and no, by no means am I making a comparison, but you turn on the news and you see in Paris an advancing crowd and long batons just being used to strike and that's what I think we were all, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, pushing this point, that was the thing I never want to see in Eugene. And I appreciate that you took it to the city attorney. I get the language. It needs to be in accordance with the policy. I get that use of force is it's not in a vacuum. The crowd control use of ASP and batons, and I'm going to support the policy, and I appreciate the response over the 3 months. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Commissioner Lemon?
Thank you, Chair. It's kind of more of a comment. I might be able to come to a question, but I'm actually quite disappointed with the response over the last month. My big issue was addressing people with disabilities and the reasonable accommodations that you were willing to make to do so. I was just seeking clarity on that. I was not trying to have people with disabilities erased out of the policy. And I know you said you're referring to policy 800. So I scoured that policy and I don't see anything relating to people with disabilities whatsoever. So my chief concern was actually not addressed and kind of skipped over. And that's something that the disability community experiences a lot and is going to be a sore spot for a long time if we don't address it here. Thank you, and I'm sure I'll have further questions and comments later.
Do you have any more questions?
I was just going to address that Chief Skinner addressed that was on page 4. It was under bullet G, in regards to after deploying kinetic impact projectiles in a crowd. We were going to take reasonable action to accommodate individuals with disabilities when issuing or enforcing orders to disperse. And I think that Chief Skinner addressed that we would take reasonable accommodations and making sure that we were issuing statements and repeated orders for people to disperse and allowing that time for people to disperse. And so he, I think at the last meeting indicated that we would not add additional verbiage in there to describe every single disability that could be accounted for. So.
Does that satisfy you, Commissioner Lemon?
I'm sorry, but no, it doesn't. And I might be overlooking something, but Julie, you were saying on page 4, it's talking about this and then
Page 6 of the handout.
Yeah. Page 6. Okay.
Yeah, it's 4 of the policy, but on the agenda, it comes out to, I think it's on the bottom of page 6 under G.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that and reserve questions and comments for a second.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a follow-up question
Yeah.
for Commissioner Lemons. Regarding individuals with disabilities, I would like to know how we're assessing the disabilities, since many of them are not visible.
Absolutely, that was my question as well. So I do see in the policy that you did keep us in, so I do appreciate that. I'm sorry for overlooking it. So on the last meeting, we spoke about someone with a wheelchair, which, don't take this the wrong way, but that's like the very stereotypical way of looking at people with disabilities. So I was just asking for more clarity regarding how EPD looks at people with disabilities and assesses it. And EPD and Chief Skinner, which I know he's not here today, but was supposed to come back with just some answers regarding how EPD views people with disabilities and how they go about making those decisions.
Well, where we're at now is I would like to make a motion that we need to put this to a vote. So what I would like to know is I'd like to make a motion that we take the changes that we have made, that we've talked about, and with said changes that we have as of today, we move forward with passing this this policy. And I just needed to know if I can have a second. Second. So we have a second. So all those in favor of the changes that we had today, we move forward with this policy. I need to hear you say aye. By raising your hand, aye. What's the number? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 1 and abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain. The ayes have it. So this policy is moved forward and that's where we're at. So next. We have.
Chair, we have a comment from Councilmember Ye.
Councilor Ye.
Sorry, I couldn't find my button. So I mean, I think Commissioner Lemons made a really good point. Like the language makes sense to me, assuming that we all have a similar idea of, what we're talking about. Are we going to be able to get some back like what he was talking about when Chief Skinner's back next time, maybe?
I have a better suggestion is that I know that we're gonna have a retreat coming up soon. And I think I have 2 policies that are due to be updated that I was gonna bring forward to mention in that retreat. And so I think that we could have a discussion and address our concerns in those policies that would cover disabilities and communication with individuals with disabilities.
Great. All right. So added to the agenda. We have Commissioner Hawkins,
Thank you, gentlemen.
and she will have 3 updates for us. The first is mental health wellness update. The second is a letter that has been written on the COPS grant support letter, and then a subcommittee update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the first update, and hopefully all of you received the email describing some of the updates from the Mental Health and Wellness Subcommittee. The primary one is that the Eugene Police Department is currently applying for a federal grant that would provide funds for EPD to develop a law enforcement specific EAP. That's an employee, now my mind just blanked.
Assistance.
Thank you, Employee Assistance Program. Currently, EPD does not have an EAP that is specific towards law enforcement needs or any of the particular sort of traumas or decisions that law enforcement personnel encounter, things that most of us in the community will never, ever have to deal with. And so funding from this grant would make it so that we have, first of all, increased and better access to 24/7 mental health benefits for the personnel. This is going to be for officers and dispatchers and for investigators as well. Currently, the EAP does not provide any after-hours access. There's no ability to summon a mental health professional to a scene or at the drop of a hat, essentially. So the EAP grant would provide the ability to do that, as well as the extended access for personnel. There are currently 286 individuals who've been identified by EPD that would benefit from this program if it's put in place. So EPD has requested a letter of support from the Police Commission to the federal agency that is funding this grant. And the letter is here, and if it's approved by the commission, will be signed by Chair Boggs and sent along with the application, which is due tomorrow, by the way, which is why we're working on this evening.
I can share it if you want me to pull it up.
That would be great. Thank you, Holly. And then for Commissioner Mogart, who I know is on the phone, I'll read it aloud. So it is addressed to the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. Dear Award Committee, on behalf of the City of Eugene's Police Commission, I am writing in their support of the city's application for federal funding under the Office of Community Oriented Policing Services, fiscal year 2023, Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act, implementation projects. There was a lot of capital letters in that sentence. Opportunity number, COPS 2023, etc. The Eugene Police Commission believes that healthy officers are a pillar and the foundation of a fair and equitable criminal justice system and are an integral part of a healthy and inclusive community. Public distrust in the police, coupled with the organizational and occupation stressors of law enforcement, create a context in which the risk of harm to officers' well-being is intensified. Stress has been shown to amplify the probability of officer errors in judgment and emotional regulation. Continued failure to treat these systemic factors erodes community support for law enforcement and perpetuates the cycle of public distrust and declining officer wellness. Recently, the Police Commission founded the Officer Mental Health and Wellness Subcommittee and has been working in collaboration with the Eugene Police Department to advance our goal to improve delivery of and access to mental health and wellness services for law enforcement personnel. The actions proposed in this application will be a step towards addressing this important measure of community-oriented policing. The Police Commission fully endorses the Eugene Police Department's efforts to seek federal funding and will continue to support efforts to improve officer wellness. Sincerely, Dallas Boggs, Chair of the Eugene Police Commission. I will say, in addition to the funds to increase the access to law enforcement specific mental health, will also provide additional training for the existing peer support and what is the R? Thank you. Say that again. Resiliency team. Thank you. PSRT. I knew the acronym. So the additional training provided to those personnel as well to be an additional boots on the ground support for our law enforcement personnel.
Do you have a question, Commissioner Lemon?
Oh, no, please let Commissioner Hawkins finish. I just have a point afterwards.
That was essentially it. The application itself is something of like 39 pages, but there is actually a very clearly detailed outline of the reporting that will be provided during this 2-year project, as far as baseline going into the project and measurable outcomes. There will be reports provided to the source of the federal funding, and my hope is as well as to the Police Commission. Commissioner Lemons? Oh,
No, it's great. I'll hold my hand.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you. So I'm on the subcommittee as well, and I just wanted to encourage everyone to vote yes on this endorsement. So yes, 256 individuals within EPD might be benefiting from this, but the entire city of Eugene is going to benefit from this. So that was just the extra point that I wanted to make, and I do thank you, Commissioner Hawkins, for all your work.
What are the reporting metrics?
that is a good question. In the one pager, there will be survey results and rates of use of force turned into the following deliverables. Internal reports on EAP usage, those will be confidential, by the way, and job satisfaction survey results. External reports and or conference presentations documenting efforts, lessons learned, and promising practices, and data on outcomes that will be made available via public records requests to researchers examining the connection between law enforcement, specific mental health services, and community policing. I see this a lot like an opportunity like Cahoots, where the nation sits up and takes note, and hopefully we'll have things to learn from how we implement this.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the letter. A lot of work, and thank you so much for the work that you put into that and a lot of research. So I applaud you for that. I have no changes for this letter, and I will gladly sign this. So I'd like to make a motion. Excuse me, we have a hand up.
I'll second.
Hey, y'all. Yeah, definitely going to be voting in support of this. It would have been great to be able to have the letter and maybe the executive summary of the grant in more advanced, so we could understand both the function of the grant and then the work of the committee and how it feeds in together. But as a recovering grant writer myself, I know what it's like to submit these letters of support, 24 hours in advance. So I just want to say, for those of you who may, not or be less familiar with the process of writing grants and getting letters of support, these do make a difference to grant review committees. So just wanted to say that, less than ideal, but also totally normal. And so, yeah, really thrilled that y'all are including us in the process, and just wanted to say thanks for the leadership of everyone on the subcommittee.
So
And I would like to second.
Did I have a second? Is that you? Okay, Commissioner Lemon is seconding. All those in favor? Aye, raise your hand. All those opposed? The letter will be signed, and I'll sign it right now. You can go ahead.
One other item that I had is that I believe that our current name of the subcommittee is for officer wellness and mental health. That seems a little bit limiting, especially considering that this grant is addressed towards law enforcement personnel, and we are including dispatchers and investigators. So I would like to make a motion that the subcommittee be renamed in alignment with this grant opportunity to law enforcement, mental health, and wellness.
I would like to second that.
Thank you, Scott.
I would like to speak against the motion. The subcommittee on mental health exists and was spun up in order to give us a recommendation for what to put on the work plan. So the subcommittee is only going to have a name for another month, less than. So there's no point in changing it really.
So, Commissioner Lemon.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Shivers. I just respectfully disagree with that point. I think that our subcommittee does need to be named appropriately, even if it's going to exist for a month and a half. I really do hope it's going to continue in existence going forward, but just for public records requests and everything else I do think is important. So thank you.
Since we're anyone else want to add to this? Okay, I believe you. Did you have a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so she brought up the motion. I believe Commissioner Lemon, you seconded. So those in favor of the name change as she has worded it, raise your hand by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. So the name has been changed.
Thank you very much. All right, the third update was for the other subcommittee, which is the selection subcommittee for the police department. We have 3 commissioners, incumbent commissioners, who are seeking reappointment. And we have one opening due to the impending departure of Commissioner Winbrook. We received quite a few qualified applications, and we have selected 5, possibly 6 to be interviewed next week.
Great job. And Commissioner Lemon, Commissioner Mogart, and Commissioner Hawkins, thank you very much for doing the work, for doing the interviews, for doing all the reading. And hopefully the mayor will take what you present to her, and we get we have a hard time finding another Winbrook, but we will get as close as possible.
There's one too many.
Ready.
There's one too many.
Right.
Yeah, I just, again, just thank you so much for stepping up. I can only imagine how much additional work this is beyond your existing commitments. Yeah, and I'm thrilled to hear that there's qualified candidates that will both take this position seriously and be a contributing member to our little community.
That's great. Okay, so we are now at the part of we had closing comments.
Chair
Oh, excuse me, my bad. We have an
portion.
update of our May 6th work retreat by Holly.
Okay, everyone, I just wanted to have a brief update on our upcoming May 6th offsite work retreat. It's going to be on Saturday, May 6th. Again, that will be from 9 a.m. until about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We will be offering some breaks in there. We'll also have light refreshments and snacks in the morning, and we'll also have lunch for you guys. So there will be a lunch break. Again, this is going to be held out at the Emergency Services Training Center. It's where Eugene Springfield Fire and Eugene Police and our call takers train. And that's at 1705 West 2nd Avenue. It's the corner of 2nd and Chambers. I'll send you an email as we get closer with all these specifics, but I just wanted to get this on your radar. And then in terms of the lunch that we'll be having, if you have any food restrictions, would you please email me to let me know so I can take that into consideration? It'll likely be a hot buffet or something of some sort. And then again, a reminder, this is a time for us to get together to plan our FY24, FY25 biennial work plan. which will be submitted to council for their approval in June before the end of our fiscal year, which is July 1st. And we'll need to get council's consent for that before we move into our new biennial work plan. We're also going to be reviewing our current bylaws. So I know a few of you have requested to get a copy of those bylaws. I can send those to you if you'd like, just to kind of get started on that and, you know, highlight questions that you have or things that you'd like to bring forth. And then at that time, we will be talking about the law enforcement, mental health, wellness subcommittee and do more kind of in-depth work on that. So I was wondering if there's anything else that you guys wanted to add to that agenda at this time.
Mr. Stivers?
I have a strong request that anybody who is wanting to change up the bylaws do so with some sort of forewarning so we can read over any potential changes before the retreat itself. Whether it's an email to Holly that she sends to all of us or no, not any or. I would love if everybody could do that, though it is not required by our current bylaws.
Any more questions? Okay,
Oh, Chair Boggs, I don't know if you wanted to address, Vice Chair Dominguez's, she was hoping to talk about the voting mechanism. She's not here this evening, so.
so I don't know, so we won't be talking about it. What I'll do is I'll get with her and if whatever it is, we'll get an email to everybody.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Looks like we have a
Oh,
question.
sorry. Commissioner Lemon?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. So I get that you're going to speak with Bonnie, but this agenda item, I would like to propose either star voting or ranked choice voting, so we can ensure that our priorities are in order. But just wanted to get that on the record. I know that'll come up later. Thank you.
All right, so closing comments. Commissioner Mogart.
I would just say that I really think that Chair Boggs, you need to start allowing for other people to make motions and then let the body make a motion and then make a second. That's all I would say.
Thank you. Commissioner Winbrow.
I just want to say that thanks everyone if this was intentional or unintentional, but I got to stay the whole meeting, even though I have to take off to my seminar. So record time. Thanks for the presentation. And again, just thank you so much to the subcommittees for both doing the work that's so desperately needed to be able to fill the vacant seat, but also for bringing those motions and those updates to us tonight. Appreciate y'all.
Commissioner Lemon. Commissioner Lemon? Yeah.
Sorry, my computer brought up something else and covered up the mute. Basically, just thank y'all for y'all's time and energy. Really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm very disheartened that we approved, 807, but that is my cross to bear. And I very much am looking forward to our retreat so we can all get on the same page and figure out future goals and maybe go over the bylaws. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all in person.
Thank you.
Chair, can I go a little out of order? Because I'd be remiss if I didn't say a huge shout out and thank you for the steadfast commitment of Sergeant Julie Smith. You consistently listened to the voice of this body and went back into the policy. And I know that you have years of experience on the force, but you don't have a ton of experience working with us. And I just want to say that your professionalism and commitment to making sure that you found language and a process that worked for everyone just meant so much to me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And my brain's more scattered than usual, and it's already pretty scattered to begin with. So please don't be offended by my lack of inclusion of thanks in my last comments. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Commissioner Hopkins.
I think I've had quite enough comments today. But thank you very much to the commission for your support for the law enforcement mental health subcommittee and for the letter that I'm very pleased that we'll be able to submit along with the EAP grant tomorrow.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyman?
Thank you, Chair. This process requires good faith on people and to have some faith. And I went for the approval of that policy with some faith that our officers will use their ASP batons and impact weapons with restraint and in accordance with policy. And I just want to again thank Julie and everyone in the department for the follow-up on that policy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, I have a few comments. The first one is that I've got a lot of changes that I've wanted to make to the bylaws for a long time. So expect an email with some of those. You know, they're from things as simple as changing he/her to their, to as complicated as a full write-up in order to facilitate Zoom meetings, which currently our bylaws don't explicitly allow. So that's the first comment. The second comment is that there's a proposed measure 2034-0 for the jail levy. I'm not going to tell anybody to vote any specific way on it, but I had a meeting with the sheriff and he's doing jail walkthroughs for folks if you want to sign up and see why, in my opinion at least, this levy is so important for the safety of those incarcerated in Lane County, as well as our officers. And the third comment was to thank Sergeant Smith and address Scott Lemon's concerns about disability. Specifically, like I have an invisible disability and I'm an activist. I've been out there and the sort of invisible nature of it and the ability of officers to not see that is often something that I have to juggle when I decide to go out there. And it's not something that fits neatly into any specific single policy. So thank you for bringing forward a few policies that will hopefully more comprehensively address some of those concerns. Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank the presenter for their presentation earlier and also want to thank my colleagues on the subcommittee for their hard work.
And then Commissioner Lehman always reminds me, Chair, you need to do a closing statement yourself. So I have a closing statement. I want everyone on this commission to understand that I value you and you are very much appreciated. Everybody. We have a team effort. We may not see everything on the same eye to eye, but we find a way to bring some type of, you know what, it might not always be what I wanted fully, but this is a lot closer to what it was before. And I could tell you right off the bat, I am not your perfect chair. And I didn't keep this position to be a chair, but I'll guarantee you that I listen to everything that we say. And I try to find ways that we move forward, because by moving forward, we're a stronger commission. And I believe the people of Eugene need that in times like these. So that is my closing statement, and I wish you all good night. Thank you.
Thank you.